the four main silos of questions that I have to do with project, proof of work, or just consensus in general, privacy, and specifically on-chain privacy. And then another one that kind of brings it back down to the opinion, kind of getting to know you level with the founders or whoever I'm interviewing, and their personal tastes on privacy and thoughts and opinions on privacy. I've been a long time advocate of proof of work, and I kind of got my start in the content creation scene, talking about at-home mining, small-scale mining, and it's rough going right now for the small-scale miner.
It's never been really easy going. I mean, I got into mining in GPU mining in early 2011, relatively early, a couple of weeks after ArtForce released the infamous YouTube videos of him actually mining the GPUs. I CPU mined actually several runs of blocks in 2010 and deleted and formatted.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. No. I'm all good with that.
Sure.
That's
well, I mean, I'm glad you've made your peace, because I'm sure everybody you tell face palms.
At the time, it made perfect sense. It doesn't make much sense now, but back then it did. I had a laptop the first laptop got stolen. The second time round, that drive crashed, and we were talking about maybe $5 worth of Bitcoin, so I didn't stress about trying recovery.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, who could have known what the ultimate value would be?
No, the only real regret I have is Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox was absurdly bad.
Sounds like then we can backtrack, talk a little bit about that in the more getting to know you section. Why don't we go ahead and kick things off? First off, we haven't actually met.
Yeah, I'm David.
Okay, so David, you are the lead maintainer for Raptoreum, lead dev?
Yeah, something more like architect. Try is doing most of the coding. I mainly do really clunky stuff, Ruby and sort of fundamentals. I'm going to be doing a bit of the nodes, working on, some of the stuff I'm going to show you a little bit later.
Okay, I'm really looking forward to that. You're actually the first interviewee who's bothered to prepare anything to show by way of work process, not just work product.
Oh, but I mean, we've got, we're a code fork, so we need to set ourselves a bit apart from the main chain, and we're doing that in several ways.
Okay, awesome. Looking forward to it. You may have noticed I went to the Overstock headquarters to talk to Tron Black and Jeremy Corbin, so I have no idea whether or not they'll be tuning in to watch this, but I hope they do, and I hope that they see merit in what you're working on.
And it's been a while since I've done a public interview, and the ones I've done have mainly been in China for Chinese media consumption there, back in the very early days of Bitcoin.
Now I really want to circle back to kind of the more personal part. Maybe I've got this exactly backwards, but I wind up starting kind of all business, talking about sort of the fundamentals and vitals of a project.
No. It's fine, whichever way you want to structure it. I'm cool with just about anything.
Okay, well, we'll delve a little bit into team then as we talk about project. But the first question that I ask every project is the supply. What's the current available coin supply, and what is the total projected or hoped for cap?
21 billion is the projected supply. Market cap, we don't have any real overall expectations prior to having a completely finished product.
So I think I misspoke. I think I said cap, meaning what'll be the terminal point, the terminal amount of coins or total supply.
Okay, 21 billion, which is brief. I can't remember if it's 80 some or 90 some years out into the future.
Okay, so the emission curve is...
We don't do the traditional halving. We do a slower, more gradual reduction in emissions.
Okay, but some sort of logarithmic emission curve then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Makes sense. Today, what are the transactions per second? And with the caveat that I know this may not be the end all be all for the value proposition of your project.
Transactions per second now, good grief, I don't have an exact figure for it at the moment. We're running on a test net. We have done stress tests, and following our stress tests, we've had to make a few alterations because it was too easy to flood memory pool due to the increased size of Ravencoin-based assets. I mean, they've chosen to adjust it via the transaction fee. We've done a couple of other things, and hopefully it'll all work. We're still in our third iteration of testnet.
Sure. This is spoken truly like someone who's got his hands dirty in the code right now, managing expectations.
Yeah. I mean, fourth iteration of testnet should be coming up in a week or so. Really solid numbers won't be until testnet 5, including once we start adding smart contracts to it, because we can project from there.
Great. I'm looking forward to talking about the additional functionality in just a moment. Right now, the thing that I think is most important when talking to a coin development team, I think it's important for a lot of members of the community to treat what you're doing a bit like tech startup work, in that there needs to be some kind of value proposition or core problem that's being solved, in my view. If you were to frame it that way, what was the core problem being solved by your team? And maybe if it's a more personal anecdote, who said, oh, this is my personal pain or my personal itch I'm trying to scratch? And what was that?
Basically, we want to be a bit more user-friendly than what Ethereum is for smart contracts. Ethereum and Ethereum-based forks for smart contracts are not user-friendly at all. And I've always liked complete transparency and traceability, and I'm a big believer in it. So what we're also working on is a vendor platform, which I'm going to give you a peek at in a little bit, where we are going to automate a platform. It's going to come in 3 varieties. One, completely free with access to our testnet, where vendors can try creating different types of assets and see if they can use them in product traceability or slightly more advanced form of serial numbers on, let's say, hand-forged knives. Or
hand-forged knives have made an appearance on your Twitter page maybe more than once.
Yeah.
Personal fascination then.
Not mine, that would be my partner, Charlie. He also does some hand forging.
Okay. It seemed oddly specific. I'll put it that way.
I'm more into the general applications for the food traceability. We've got some really killer hot sauce from here where I am. I'm in Borneo. Once we launch, they're going to be on our vendor platform at mainnet with all the information available on the vendor platform. We can see which mountain range further inland from here was used to grow the chilies in the hot sauce, where the garlic is sourced from, etc., 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 the whole way through.
That's pretty awesome.
It holds the vendor a lot more accountable than, for example, something like ISO 9001 does, because if they're issuing this on the mainnet, it's immutable. There is no recall, there is no this, there is no that. So if they screw up in any way, shape or form with it, that black mark is going to be there permanently.
So it's got built-in reputation management.
At the same time, it's going to come at a fraction of the cost of something like ISO 9001 certification.
It sounds like then, yeah, this for both you and Charlie, then you found very personal reasons to work on to solve this problem.
Yeah, it's good, solid, quality stuff that can be applied in a multitude of ways.
Let's talk about some of the unique tech advantage and the unique benefit to Raptoreum over, say, any other asset issuance platform or any other smart contract platform today.
User friendliness.
Okay.
I mean, to issue an ERC20 token, you really need to spend quite a bit of time and to get your hands fairly dirty with stuff. It's nowhere near what Ravencoin's tech is at all in any way, shape or form. They have tried a couple of times with automated token issuance platforms, and they have been less than successful.
So let's talk about this as a fork of Ravencoin. Today, where is Raptoreum in terms of adding value to this ecosystem?
Nowhere till mainnet. I mean, we've contributed a bit of code. We've offered a new, unique proof of work algorithm that breaks pipeline, essentially very hard to add to an FPGA or ASIC.
Got it. So it sounds like then the sort of anticipated linear increase in hash power going from one piece of silicon to the next is difficult to achieve, as opposed to other algorithms that are out there. Is that what I'm hearing?
To some extent, yeah. it's a somewhat different way of approaching the whole problem. Fitting it onto silicon at all is going to be an issue because of A, the number of chain together bits, and B, the variance within the chain together bits. If you think of an ASIC as a multi-lane highway, the more smaller bits going at high speed, the narrower the lanes have to be. But we've got some lanes that are going to be 5 or 6 times at a minimum the width of other lanes, which is going to create issues for a standardized silicon design. So it's not really going to implement at all in the same way. We've had people come in and comment on it where they've said that, well, it would actually be easier for them to offload some bits of it to the CPU and to have some bits of it run on an FPGA at the same time. That means you can't make a purely FPGA or ASIC stream for it at all. And it's running concurrently 2 different types of math curves, which is actually producing some issues with the GPU implementation.
As a layperson, my understanding of GPUs is that they're particularly good at certain types of math and not as good at others.
Yes and no. GPUs will do a lot more complex math than what's immediately available to implement on, say, FPGAs. GPU will crunch 2048-bit math all day. So will an FPGA, provided it's not multiple strings chained together, because then you'll end up with enormous bit streams that just won't implement. However, on a GPU with sufficient memory, it's not a problem at all.
And newer offerings from Xilinx, such as their HBM2 data center parts,
will not really particularly change that.
Got it.
They're still not quite up there. For example, also there's a reason why you don't see something like Kryptonite V4 hash bit streams running very successfully on FPGAs because of some of the checks, some of the self-checks in the latest version prior to RandomX. It makes it very hard to implement on FPGAs where they've got checks on the actual hashing process to the power of something fairly absurd. And that slows an FPGA right down. And we've taken full advantage of leveraging that.
Just based on these choices, it sounds like the primary motivation is to keep contributors constrained to CPUs and GPUs and not using FPGAs, or
to basically keep it as decentralized as possible. I mean, a large part of the whole FPGA and ASIC community have very bad reputations, deservedly bad reputations, for mining in secret, trying to do this in secret, trying to do that in secret. I mean, I jumped on the bandwagon and bought one of these. It was essentially an 85 kilo stack of cash register boards, one of the very first SHA mining FPGAs, which I did manage to bring back to life again later on SHA-224. However, the competitive advantage over those early boards compared to some of the more modern stuff was pretty much nothing, really. GPUs beat them. You could overclock your way out of overclock and overvolt, which just about nobody does today.
Risk versus reward. You do what you think you have to.
Yeah. Back in early SHA mining on GPUs, many people would bump up the core on their AMD GPUs by 0.05 volts or something like that. Go from there. And if you could keep it cool, you were doing good things.
Well, it's exciting to talk to somebody who was there. I'd love to. I don't know if it's safe to dox yourself as far as a Bitcoin Talk user handle from that time, or if you were mostly lurking.
No, I've been very active the whole time. Just in different ways. After Mt. Gox, I took a bit of a hiatus from anything public. It cost me my previous marriage.
I'm so sorry.
No. I'm actually a lot happier now. I didn't realize it at the time, but I'm significantly happier now. No, I was literally a few months from being able to sort of semi-retire, just do what I wanted to do, and then all of a sudden, you need a job.
It's going to be really tempting for me, David, to talk to you more about your personal experience in the early days of Bitcoin and blockchain than to talk about your current project, just because it's rare to talk to people who have been in the scene long enough to remember some of the early challenges and to have seen the cycles repeat themselves a couple of times.
Yeah, but I mean, I helped launch BTC China before they took on venture capital.
You mentioned you're in Borneo. How long have you been in Malaysia?
7 years. Prior to that, 10 plus years in China. Initially, we moved from China to Malaysia because family complications. We had problems with the Chinese one-child policy, and I thought I'd sorted everything out the way you do in China, or did in China back then. It may be a bit different under Winnie the Pooh. Malaysia is very relaxed, fantastic place, wonderful people. Quite a few crypto projects out here.
Speak of the devil, I was talking to Ruben Yap less than a week ago.
Yeah, and he's about 8 hours drive from me. Borneo highways are particularly bad. They're a particular kind of pain and suffering that you really need more compelling reasons than to just hang out.
Okay, so there's no blockchain meetup 4 hours in between then? You don't meet up at the pub?
No. 4 hours in between, you'd be hard-pressed to find a pub. It's out in the Great Swamp.
Okay. I mean, you've been there for 7 years, and the culture, it feels like a good fit then?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I like it here. Married a young lady from here and settled down pretty much.
That's exciting. And small world. Good grief. Yeah. Crypto projects out of Borneo and out of Malaysia.
Yeah. Etherscan is Malaysian.
I had no idea.
Etherscan is Malaysian. CoinGecko is Malaysian. At one point, I would say 1 in 3 of every ICO scams were Malaysian as well. But there are some good, solid projects here as well.
Just hearing the short list of the more successful and visible projects, I don't doubt it. Are there any others that maybe viewers or maybe I haven't heard of?
There are a couple of things happening with which I'm involved in very lightly on the side. Actually, governmental usage here. Several of the local governments, state-level governments here are looking at doing made-in campaigns and leveraging blockchain technology one way or another to actually certify that this pepper is from Sarawak, or these, whatever, come from Kedah, western part of Malaysia. And yeah, quite a few things going on. Halal certification possibly as well, being backed up by blockchain.
Maybe it's because of the culture, but the opportunity to work with government, it seems like perhaps they're more approachable.
Oh, definitely. A lot more approachable than so-called civilized world. Yeah.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. So it sounds like then you're creating an ecosystem, and it sounds like you perhaps have all the right connections to test this in a microcosm of government in a very hyper-local and meaningful way.
Yeah. But we do. I mean, I've been out speaking at quite a few, call them chambers of commerce, the Chinese Chamber of Commerce, the Dayak Chamber of Commerce, but all localized versions of that around Borneo and even a couple of places in Indonesia, talking about mainly what we're going to be doing with the We Use RTM platform. And we do have a lot of smaller businesses very interested in using it. Specialty coffee growers from Sumatra, cigars, hand-rolled cigars from Medan.
And pardon my ignorance, there's you'd have to go to like Cote d'Ivoire, like over to Africa to start getting involved in chocolate, right? Cocoa bean, or is there?
No, there is local chocolate here as well. It's not that widely used, and it's mainly used as like flavoring for cappuccino, and rather than for producing large amounts of chocolate, but no, there are quite a few cocoa bean plantations around, particularly where I was working on my first posting here.
Okay, so it sounds like you've got the full stack of cash crops and creature comforts to perhaps start putting into the system.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's great. Man, I'm getting more and more excited for you as we talk, because this sounds like you're just very well positioned and like you have a very clear path to market here.
We've got, like I said before, usability. User-friendliness is what it's about, because a specialty coffee grower in Medan is not going to go out and invest a ton of money in specialized hardware or getting to know this or that, but uploading a few pictures, a couple of videos onto a vendor portal where they can accept different cryptos as payment. They only get a very limited number of free web slots for products, but they do get some where they can get paid in Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum or Raptoreum.
This is exciting. Let's talk a little more about the platform and the and this offering in just a moment. As far as the team, you mentioned Charlie as well. Is it primarily the two of you?
We're in the owner position. We've got Try, who is, I mean, he's fantastic. I mean, man, he can code absolutely anything. And we've got I Am Legion, who is even longer time in the space than I am and has been working on security the whole time. If you know some of his older aliases, yeah, you'd shudder. But yeah.
Okay, again, maybe that's an off the record conversation then.
Yeah, definitely.
Here's the thing. I mean, I've only been active in the space for a little over 2 years now, but even that short time, I almost feel like nothing should shock me anymore. Sort of the people that you run into, just sort of still working on stuff.
We are a very odd combination, very, very far outside most people's expectations of a normal team.
Glad to hear it. I think that's sorely needed as well, because there are also a bunch of weekend warriors who, popped up an ERC20 token over the weekend and then decided to start as a scam and then jump back in to try to be responsible and are limping forward somehow. Who knows?
Yeah.
So it's great to hear that you have a unique combo there. Let's talk a little bit about where kudos maybe do. You mentioned some people on the team. Is there anybody that would be immediately, I wouldn't say necessarily recognizable, but who you'd like to give public recognition to for anyone who in the audience who may not be familiar with the Raptoreum project or the previous work of anybody contributing to it?
That would be Try. I mean, he has done an awful lot of tinkering in the blockchain space. He managed to produce some of the very first Dash and X16R forks on projects that didn't turn scammy, but they did turn fizzly. They did fizzle. Quite a few of them, but there's nothing wrong with his code. He's never been in the role of project ownership or management or anything, only on the technical side. He is a lot more skilled than what most people expect. I mean, I'm Legion has made sure that we're basically on Bitcoin code base. There are currently 11 major known exploits. And we're going to be launching with fixes for over half of them.
Wow.
In place.
Okay, that's great. It brings me to my next question. One of the metrics in the open source community of a good culture for a team, and this is perhaps a little bit different from, say, I don't know, working on the Linux kernel or working on a file browser or a file system that people like to use on say FreeBSD. But one of the metrics that I think people measure teams by is their willingness to collaborate and issue responsible disclosure of bugs, and then to share and to receive help in return from other open source developers. Where are some success stories for Raptoreum?
Oh, but I mean, we've Ravencon have credited us they've just left it as an exploit, and let's just call it an exploit. It was a rather nasty one on the asset layer.
That's a pretty big deal for them. That's the main event. It's the whole value prop.
Yeah, but I mean, we were doing extensive integration testing, and suddenly in the middle of everything, it popped up. Dash don't have a history of dealing in good faith with anybody.
Okay.
And they don't. I don't give a damn what they say. They can say whatever they want about it. They're generally speaking full of shit. We did try to do responsible disclosure with them. They refused to have it moderated. Some of their, basically they pick somebody from Bitcoin Core or from somewhere else. So we're going to be launching with a fix for some glaringly obvious holes in part of their product.
So you tried, but they just weren't receptive.
Yeah, they weren't willing to talk about it seriously, and basically I insisted we weren't doing anything without a moderator because they have bad history. Basically, they don't deal in good faith. They're kings in a crumbling castle. They're looking at switching from proof of work to proof of stake, at least for some of it, and it's all iffy.
Okay, but it sounds like though your team is cherry picking what you can from their project.
Yeah, but I mean we are using any good code that's out there. Why not use it?
That makes sense to me. However,
I mean, any good code that's out there, why not use it and evolve it and take it to the next level? That's what it's all about. It's not about, I've got a bigger dick than you do. And if that's the level people take it to, then the only ones that lose in the end are them. It's that simple, because there's always going to be somebody with a better skill set than yours who comes along.
Sure.
And I mean, we've paid out significant amounts of IOU tokens that will be redeemable against mainnet from our developer fee once we launch already. In bug bounties, in server audits, etc.
Okay.
And I mean, the only way to go about something like that is to be completely fair and transparent about it.
Okay. Yeah, that answers the question very well. It sounds like for your team's part, you've attempted to conduct yourselves at a high level of integrity, and it sounds like that's the standard for you moving forward. So
yeah. Oh,
great.
But I mean, I'm currently in discussions with 2 other teams.
Phenomenal.
But that's on holes that aren't directly applicable to us, but came to light during the process of doing some of the integration work we're doing.
Okay, then it sounds like that level of integrity is something that clearly is important to you and to your team.
Yeah.
As a matter of culture and as a matter of personal integrity. Great.
Yeah, but I mean, it is what it is, and if people don't want to deal with it, then sorry, I don't care.
Sure. Yeah, you're not showing up at their door, taking a dump in the lawn, calling them ugly. You're trying to fix their code.
No. Yeah.
So that makes sense. As far as funding, how was Raptoreum initially funded? How is it, or what is the intent in terms of going when it goes to mainnet funding and then moving forward funding?
Well, funding right now is out of my pocket and out of Charlie's pocket. It's starting to get, frankly, pretty thin, because we are 10, 20 grand, something like that, in the red so far. Okay. But I mean, that's not really, that's neither here nor there. 5% developer fee on the project, but at launch, we've got these IOU tokens we're using that are issued on the Raven chain. We're using for bounties, etc. They will be paid out concurrently with us getting anything.
Okay.
Meaning at launch, you register your IOU tokens, they go in the payment queue, and once that's done, then the team starts getting.
Okay, so then the initial developer fee then is going to be payment for those IOUs on deferment as it trickles in.
Yeah,
that's great. Okay, awesome. In our conversation so far, this is not shocking. This is starting to sound. I'm getting a sense for who you are and how you operate. So this is matching my idea of you so far. As far as problems that you've discovered so far, I mean, you haven't launched mainnet yet, so no botnets or 51% hash attacks or anything to speak of.
No, we've had a few. A couple of people had a go at our public net. We did have one developer in for our Stratum is a little bit different from the normal Stratum because we've got both kryptonite code and regular SHA-3 algorithms coming together in a single chaining. So it required some slight modifications. We did have some problems with the very first iteration of the Stratum, and we did have a few minor DDoS-like attacks on the first pool right when we launched, but it was nothing really to speak of. It got mitigated and sorted out. We found the bug and moved on from there.
Okay. And the unique tech advantage or benefit to using Raptoreum as a token or as a coin, as a token, and then an issuance platform with the associated products in the future. What's the grand vision?
Well, the grand vision is to become a fully fledged ecosystem. I mean, traceability is something we can launch immediately at mainnet, and it can help spread the word and carry us through. And then where we can go once we've got smart contracts working on the platform, it's really a question of the sky's the limit, because we've got a very unique two-layer solution to the whole contract approach. We've got service nodes which will be deploying these contracts in Ansible, if you're familiar with that.
An orchestration tool, I believe, Ansible is?
It's basically automated software deployment.
Okay.
So it will automate the deployment of these bits of bytecode as they sit in their own little IPFS storages. Once they get called, they get automatically deployed. We've had to slow down the block time a bit compared to Ravencoin to make sure we get time for everything to execute properly. And then we've got Prism rolling out together with the smart contracts, which is going to function mainly like Dash-style chain locks, but instead of just adding BLS signatures to each block, it's going to basically add an extra layer to the outside of the block. Okay. With whatever checkpointing data is needed from the contract layer.
Okay, so it sounds like then there's quite a bit then that you have roadmapped for this service node network that that'll add value to what we already see in Ravencoin.
Yeah. Oh yes. But I mean, it's going to be essentially, I would even say, more, in some ways, more capable than what Ethereum is. Ethereum are somewhat limited in what they can and can't do, in the sense that they're a single layer solution. With a dual layer solution, you've got the ability to make things like outside API calls in a much more controllable, measured fashion. It's not quite as open to spoofing and exploitation as some things on the Ethereum chain have been. They are getting better, but they're still not overly user-friendly. I mean, yeah, some of the new distributed applications are nice. They've got quite good functionality in them, but still, in terms of the technical level, the more business side of things, they're not that easy to deal with. Whereas something like bytecode is, yes, you won't get a first-person shooter game up and running on it, but for just about anything else, non-entertainment purposes, you can do what's needed with much less.
Okay. So the grand vision then for Raptoreum as an ecosystem is is very grand. There's more.
I mean, it's build the tech and see where it goes.
Okay, great. So
and give it a solid foundation before we get there.
Okay, awesome. Let's talk a little bit about proof of work before we jump into privacy. You mentioned already working on a novel proof of work algorithm, and you mentioned it being a bit of an adaptation and merging of the X16R algorithm and the Kryptonite algorithm.
Not just one iteration of Kryptonite, multiple ones. We've got I can't even remember the exact number now, but 12 different types of Kryptonite algorithms involved in the current testnet. Some of them run a little bit too fast and cause spiking, just like with early X16R.
Okay.
And that's not a good thing. So we've smoothed it out, and for the mainnet launch, we've got slightly reduced number of Kryptonite iterations, but still more than enough to make sure that pipeline for this is well and truly dead.
Okay, sounds good. I think AMD GPU owners may be excited to hear that there's enough of the Kryptonite variants in your algorithm to help them be a little bit more competitive.
Compared to purely X16R? Oh, yes, definitely.
Great. So in terms of proof of work and consensus, at launch, what percentage of the block reward will go to mining?
Right at very launch for the first 24 hours, we've got kind of a guaranteed fair launch built in. We're releasing binaries and code a few days before launch. And then for the first 24 hours of mining, we have some completely insignificant block rewards. Everybody gets one coin. One coin for the miner, one coin for the developers, one coin for the nodes. There aren't going to be any, though, because there's not going to be sufficient distribution for that. And that's it at launch itself. We've got a fairly unique reward structure with roughly 15% of the payment going, 5% going to the developers, 15% going to the nodes, and then Raven has an asset issuance fee, which we are recycling and then feeding back in as additional reward for the node owners. So the more, you can't really set a fixed number on it. The more it's used, the more they get paid.
Okay. So this isn't a part of the block reward per se. It's just it's a function of transaction volume in assets.
Yeah.
Okay.
15% plus that function. Yeah.
Okay. Great. And the remaining 80%.
Which means that for some of the very first people to scrape together nodes, they are going to be extremely happy.
I'm sure. I recall the asset boom with both Raven and then also with RitoCoin, where it was a free for all, right? And everybody was burning 500 Raven here and there to get every asset they wanted.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine.
I believe that some of the restricted asset features that are rolling out now on Raven will somewhat counteract domain squatting and name squatting, and because now you can just issue a restricted version of the same. And I mean, what we're looking at with that tech, once we implement it, is we're looking at, for example, where they're talking about KYC tagging, that somebody stores KYC and then tags certain verified addresses. We are looking at, with one ISO 14000, that's where you normally go to get your ISO 9001 certificate. You normally go to an ISO 14000 accredited agency. For example, someone like SGS or Veritas or something like that. We are working with one of those for the purpose of guaranteeing, well, in this case, made in Sarawak, where they would be able to tag addresses from companies as being certified as locally sourced producers of sort of like fair trade certification, but a bit less fuddable.
Okay, that's great. So it sounds like then, in the same way that Raven has been working with I think it's Finclusive as their partner for certification for those restricted assets.
Yeah,
you're then working with an ISO, you said 14,000, in order to then work on the first phase of what the is it We Use RTM platform will offer. Phenomenal. Yeah. This is great. As far as going back to consensus and proof of work and rewards, you mentioned that there's a 5% founders fee or dev fee. There's a 15% node reward, and then plus whatever the transaction volume is that dictates additional rewards that go to nodes, and then for assets. But then the remaining 80% is entirely for proof of work mining.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there a curve or a schedule on which you will reduce proof of work mining, or perhaps alter that?
No, the percentages are fixed. Once rewards start cutting, they cut across the board.
Okay, got it. So there's no plan, at least today, for any of that to change. Is there any other consensus mechanism that you've evaluated?
The overall aim with the reward structure and scheme we've got is, if you take once everything, the collateral for the service nodes also scales up, meaning it starts fairly low because distribution is going to be low, but we want the functionality on the chain because it's going to be our 51% defense mechanism.
Okay.
So it scales up in turn with coin distribution and goes slowly upwards, step by step, until it hits roughly half a day's chain output. Now, that is a significant amount of coinage, and it is a significant investment if the price goes anywhere above, say, 5-6 cents. If it does get to that point, and we do have, say, 4,000 or 5,000 nodes on the network, those nodes should be getting a rough return on average overall on their investment of 6 to 7% a year, which is comparable to a high-yielding bond. So it's not unrealistic. It's not an absurd get-rich-quick scheme. Sure. There is that, and then there is the additional payment from asset fees.
Okay, so then it's in their best interest, of course, to urge usage of the core market offering, which is We Use RTM, not so much the blockchain itself as much as the public business facing market offering. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, providing real world value to people who may not have their heads in the blockchain clouds as many of us do.
But if you're ready to have a look at We Use RTM, let me see if I can figure out how to do a share screen on this. It's been a while. I used to use this for teaching, but haven't used it in a very long time. Share screen. Okay. Oops. Yeah. Good. So, we use RTM. Easy and secure traceability tokens and marketplace. This is very much still under development, and we're working on it. It's not fully live. Vendors are going to be able to come in, sign up for an account, register. They get a free web shop. The web shop is not ready to take a look at yet. But what's more relevant is here. They get access to 3 versions of this platform. It's a very basic web form at the moment.
Mm-hmm. But it appears to mirror very closely, at least the first several fields, very closely the asset issuance dialogue within one of the wallets.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what it's based on. However, some of the, what do you call them? Some of the data fields are somewhat different.
Oh, yeah. It's far more robust.
But I mean, on platform, 3 versions of this. Version 1, our test net, completely free of charge. So they can basically play with it and see what they could possibly use it for. Version 2, for some of the smaller vendors, particularly some of the ones in Indonesia and, well, the more rural parts of Malaysia and Borneo, buying crypto might not be an option. So a fiat gateway, where they are buying not a token or not coin, but basically getting this token issued on the chain as a service, which means we don't need to do KYC, we don't need to worry about any of that. We are providing a very specific service. And could you technically possibly twist this into something like an asset? Well, yes, but you will still have tags in it that say production date and stuff like that, which will make it a very, very odd security. So
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the third version of it is where they pay with some other crypto or Raptoreum.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is great. I'm noticing the WordPress formatting ribbon rear its ugly head in the top of the screen.
Yeah.
I take it this is an early mock-up then.
No, this is not a knock-up. This actually works on our testnet. Now, let's call this asset symbol Seth, and we'll go ahead and call it Seth. Quantity 1. Asset issuer's name. And what is today's date? It's the 18th. Whoa. Oops. What did I just do there?
May have been page down while you were using the numpad.
Yep. I'd forgotten to turn numlock on. Getting old. 2020. Yeah. Whoops. Interview with Seth, description, and then you've got all these optionals here. Standard, for example, ISO 9001 compliant, our interview, keywords for it.
Yeah, nobody call OSHA. I don't know if we're actually compliant.
But Yeah, everybody's clear on this being a a demonstration. Yeah, keywords. Let's just call it good fun. Quantity type. 1. Website would be what's your URL. Mine your biz. Was that .com or
Mine your .biz.
Ah, okay.
I know. I should have done the .com. Everybody always looks for the .com.
Yeah. It's not always really worth it. Any files you want to attach, an icon you want to attach, image you want to inline on it. Oops. Good. Contact details, contact address, contact phone, all optional. Issue asset. Yeah. And it asks for confirmation that this is what we want. Tick the box and then choose your method of payment. And here, this is going to take us to Alipay. This is popping up in Chinese because of where I am. It should pop up fully localized. And just 1 second, let me look off screen for a credential. Or do you mind if I turn off sharing just for a second?
Sure.
Good. If I can figure out how to do that.
Why don't I go ahead and I'll stop it from this end. So now.
Okay. Excellent. Good. Just a second. Let me go off screen and get the credential for that. Okay. Okay, and Alipay is, of course, just choosing now to have a problem with their API for testnet use. Or have I made a typo here? Ah, I made a typo. Good. And let me turn the screen sharing back on. As we pass the sensitive phase of that, that's your payment ID. That's a confirmation of it. And yeah, internet here is a bit slower than, but yeah, successfully issued. So then we can hop along to our Explorer, which is also pretty custom. We've got everything in a single tab here, or in a single window really. Blocks, latest transactions, assets, it may not be in a block just yet.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Should be in a block shortly. Let's see.
Interesting. SC Zell Lab.
Yeah, Zell Labs have been very nice and supportive. Produced an excellent pool, apart from the official pool for the testnet. So we've got testnet going on in several places. Quite a few people are also wallet mining. Why? Oh. One second. Yeah. It keeps popping up. Yeah. It's issued. So why do I not have it on the Explorer? That's odd.
I didn't ask you before
Anyway.
what the block time is for Raptoreum.
Every 2 minutes. On the testnet, we're running with 1 minute block times for the main reason that we are basically able to get more data on the stability of proof of work, on how it all works during that. And we're not going to be hitting anything really major in terms of... no, hold on. Didn't I call it? Did I call it Seth, or did I call it interview with Seth?
I think you called it just Seth.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, clearly Savage Mind has got an asset issued, so there's a content.
Issued an asset. He issued an asset on it during one of his initial videos where he demonstrated that it was just as easy as basically Raven, but no.
So I take it then his was issued via the wallet.
Via the wallet, yeah.
Okay.
It's odd because I did a couple of assets earlier. Beers, yeah. 1,000 beers. You can immediately see holding addresses, etc. You can see who owns beer. Well, you can see who's got the, who's moved them around, who's got what beer.
It's always one of the first to go.
Yeah, but of course.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to be the sole proprietor of the beers token, the beers asset?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've got the regular details on it directly available, and then we've got JSON strings for if somebody wants to use it in an API, all directly available from the Explorer. Let's give that search one more try. No, hold on. Not asset. Yeah. No, something must have gone wrong, unfortunately. That's rather funny, because it was working just a couple of hours ago.
Well, and yeah, clearly right there you've gotten success messages along the way.
Yeah. No. I'll have to do a follow-up with you at some point. But anyway, it will be working fully by mainnet, and I mean this is very much a sneak peek. As you can see, it's very clearly says not yet open or functional.
Yeah, no worries. And I mean, this is great that you have that you've got a way to issue. Oh, I've refreshed the Explorer on my end, and it is showing over here. So yeah,
that would be down to crap internet here then, because no, I'm on really rotten internet on my end.
Okay, so I've gone ahead and typed in my name in the search, and there it shows right there. Amount 1, not reissuable, one of a kind with an IPFS hash attached. So
yes, exactly. And let me turn sharing back on.
Okay, you should be able to.
Yeah, I can now. Okay. And okay, in that case, let me give the Explorer a hard refresh, because we also host our own IPFS for the platform. So vendors who issue on the platform don't have any problems with needing to find an outside IPFS host, etc. Here, IPFS, we use RTM.com. That's your hash going in at the end instead there, issued with Raptoreum.com, files, etc. The whole data string.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so then you're seeding IPFS then with your own servers. Will that be implemented on the service node network at any point? And then
yes.
Okay.
Each individual node. This is not going to be your traditional master node hosting. You're going to need an actual server to run this.
Okay.
And it's going to have its own secure IPFS network for storing smart contracts.
Okay.
Stuff like metadata, and there's no reason why it can't go into our general cloud, but for each individual node's smart contract storage, they will be running their own tiny little IPFS hidey hole.